it would make it cooler if you had more clouds. I'm not going to go through this calculation now. You'll be glad to hear. Anyone who's nerdy enough to want to follow it, get my slides and read the text underneath. Now, here's another dreadful departure of the computer models, these Xbox 360s that the UN uses, from reality. All these models predict, they have to, because you can't otherwise pretend that CO2 has a huge effect on temperature. They all predict that in the tropical upper air, there will be warming at 3 times the surface rate. And here you can see that prediction. There it is, man-made greenhouse warming, middle on the left, various other forcings, combine them, bottom right, and that man-made forcing still predominates. But that's the prediction. Here it is again, more predictions from different UN climate models. They all predict this tropical mid-troposphere or upper troposphere hotspot. You have latitude from left to right, south to north, and altitude going up. So you can see it's in the tropics, in the upper air. There should be this tripling of the surface warming rate. Now, the inconvenient truth about this particular prediction is that we can check it by doing a boring thing called measurement. What we do is we send up radio sondes on balloons which report back what they find in the way of changes in temperature, or we fly up in a plane and we drop sondes, or we try and do it by satellite. Now, all of these are subject to a certain amount of uncertainty, but here is what the data actually show. That is the real-world data produced by the Hadley Centre, founded by Margaret Thatcher, God bless her, and you'll see there, question mark, that's where the tropical upper troposphere hotspot isn't. Not there. It's all gone off. It's absent. And why is it absent? Because there is no theoretical reason why it should be there. It's an invention, it's a fiction of those who are trying to make out that CO2 has a huge effect on temperature. How do they get to this fiction? Well, what they do is they say that as the Earth warms up, and this is quite correct as far as it goes, it doesn't go far enough. As the Earth warms up, so it is capable of carrying near exponentially more water vapor. By another proven result, which they're willing enough to mention, the Clausius-Clapeyron relation. And as a result, you get more water vapor, and at those high altitudes, where the absorption bands of water vapor are not saturated, if you put more water vapor there, then that will stop the radiation getting out. It'll be trapped there by various molecules, mostly of water vapor, and therefore you will get warming there. That's why that is predicted. However, a recent paper by Paltridge et al., come out just in the last few months, 2009, finds that what happens is that the extra water vapor as the world warms up there subsides by its own weight to lower altitudes where the absorption bands of water vapor are already saturated and therefore no additional or very little additional warming is caused, and therefore no differential in the warming rate between the upper troposphere and the tropics and the ground. That too is fatal to the official theory, and we now know why, thanks to Paltridge, that fatal observation is true. So we move on. We do a little math check. Now, if you take away the whole atmosphere, I love doing experiments like this, be bold. We take away the whole atmosphere, the cryosphere, the biosphere, and the hydrosphere. Take them all away and just leave the lithosphere. A rock the same kind of composition as Mars, the same distance from the Earth and the same size from the Sun as it is now. What would be the surface temperature? We use that magic equation, the fundamental equation of radiative transfer at the emitting surface of a planetary body. It tells you immediately what the temperature is. And it's only 33 Fahrenheit cooler than it is today. What does that mean? It means that the entire greenhouse effect of the entire atmosphere, once you net off the albedo effect of the extra clouds that appear, is only 33 Fahrenheit. That's the entire global warming effect of the existing atmosphere. And now what the UN is trying to tell us is that if we alter 1/2000th of the composition of the atmosphere over just the next 100 years, somehow that is going to have the same effect as 1/6 of the existing atmosphere. That is how totally absurd the high climate sensitivity value assumed by the UN actually is. And now we're going to prove it. And I'm going to ask you a very simple question. I'm going to ask you, if we warm up the surface of the Earth, does the amount of radiation coming out from the Earth and going back into space at the top of the atmosphere, A, increase, B, stay the same, or decrease? Hands up for an increase in response to warming. Quite a few. Hands up for no change in response to warming. 1 or 2. Hands up for a decrease in response to warming. 1 or 2. And hands up those who have not voted so far. Thank you very much. Give yourselves a round of applause. You're an honest audience, because what you're saying is you don't know. Now, that is an interesting experiment to me. I've not yet found an audience that did know, and I speak on this stuff all over the world. Why don't you know? Because you haven't been told. We've been through that. That is the most important consideration. Because we have to know, don't we, whether or not radiation is being trapped in the Earth's atmosphere by all these extra greenhouse gases, perhaps reinforced by extra water vapor as the Earth warms. That's what it's all about. And yet we can't answer that simple question. And why can't we answer it? Because we have not been told. They do not wish us to know the answer. We're going to see why they don't wish us to know the answer in a moment. Here are 11 Xbox 360s. Here we have 11 models. Temperature going from left to right, and on the y-axis, the vertical axis, the outgoing radiation. As you can see, as temperature increases from left to right, the models are all told to predict, they don't work this out for themselves, they're told to predict that the amount of outgoing radiation will diminish. So those of you who put your hands up for diminution, you are at least reflecting the official position as the models are told to believe. But once again, and this is completely fatal to the official theory, once again, we can measure, can't we, how much radiation is getting out from the Earth's atmosphere. And we can correlate it, can't we, with changes in temperature at the Earth's